Today, I'm taking one of the world's largest and newest cruise ships for 72 hours. I've never sailed on Royal Caribbean's megaships, Oasis-Class or larger. Utopia of the Seas is the first time Royal Caribbean's built one of these giant ships just for weekend cruises. But they've created a ton of hype around it, calling it the world's biggest weekend. So let's get on board Utopia to find out if these massive ships live up to the hype, find out if it's really the best weekend cruise, and most importantly, find out if the trip is worth the money. Royal Caribbean was founded in 1968 in Norway and started operating out of Miami, Florida. Their first ship, Song of Norway, was one of the first cruise ships built specifically for leisure cruising, at a time when most cruise lines were just repurposing old ocean liners. So from the very beginning, Royal Caribbean was building cutting-edge ships. While Carnival focused on low-budget, party-style cruises in the 70s and 80s, Royal Caribbean offered a more classy, resort-like experience. All cruise lines have evolved quite a bit since then, but today, Royal Caribbean is still known for cutting-edge ships, adventure-seeking, and family-friendly. But even dating back to the 1980s, the beginning of the cruise industry, Royal Caribbean has always built the world's largest cruise ships. When the Sovereign-Class set sail in 1987, Voyager-Class in 99, Freedom-Class in 2006, Oasis-Class in 2009, and now the new Icon-Class, at the time they first set sail, all of these ships broke the record for the world's largest cruise ship. But it's actually not just size. Royal Caribbean Group also owns Celebrity Cruises, which launched the Edge-Class in 2018, another cutting-edge, record-breaking ship packed with industry firsts. I've sailed on Edge-Class, those are my favorite cruise ships so far. I was also on Voyager and Freedom-Class, but never Oasis. In fact, the biggest ship I'd been on up to this point was MSC Meraviglia at 170,000 gross tons. It's one of the biggest cruise ships in the world, but not even top 20 at this point. Utopia of the Seas is 236,000 gross tons, almost 70,000 tons bigger and over 20 meters wider than Meraviglia. Utopia will be by far the biggest cruise ship I've been on, and it's the biggest cruise ship in the world behind Icon-Class, but the two are basically the same size. Now, there's a reason I've never been on a ship this big. I've said before that Royal Caribbean's gigantic ships have some problems. Their massive size limits where they can sail, they're too crowded, kinda annoying looking. People often assume biggest cruise ship means best cruise ship. Over the years, I've argued that's not the case. And while they're supposedly the biggest and best cruise ships in the world, they're also very expensive to book, at least compared to other premium options. But even with all my complaining, all the criticism, the truth is I've never actually tried these megaships. Until right now. So let's get on board the world's biggest weekend. Our weekend trip would start in Port Canaveral, Florida on Friday, then head down to Nassau, Bahamas on Saturday, over to their private island, Coco Cay, on Sunday, and back to Port Canaveral on Monday. A short 3-day cruise on the biggest ship in the world packed with an infinite amount of things to do and see, supposedly. Going into this cruise, we had really high expectations. It was expensive. It's the biggest and best ship in the world. The entertainment is supposed to be spectacular. So let's find out if any of that's true. Cruising on a giant mega ship for the first time, the first thing I wanted to find out was what it's like getting on a ship this big. There's 6,000 passengers. With all their bags, they gotta get everybody from the previous cruise off, get the staterooms ready, get the new passengers on. I always imagined that turnaround day and trying to get on one of these Oasis-Class ships would be an absolute nightmare. We parked at the Port Canaveral parking garage and headed for security. We just had carry-on bags, so hopefully that'd make all this a little easier. You know, embarkation can be kinda stressful. My feelings were this was an expensive trip to book. It's gonna be crowded with a ton of people boarding. We drove all morning to get to the ship. I just hope nothing goes wrong. At this point, it's around noon with all aboard by 3 p.m., so definitely about the time that most guests would be getting on the ship. We got in line for security, and it wasn't too bad. It only took about 5 minutes. Then up the escalator into the check-in area. Here it comes. I'm sure this is going to be a disaster, and it wasn't. It's actually not crowded at all. We waited for about 10 minutes, were checked in, then headed for the long line to get on the ship. Except there wasn't a long line at all. We walked right on the ship with no wait and no problem. I don't know how Royal Caribbean pulls this off for the biggest cruise ship in the world, but the boarding process was really easy. A quick tip, you may want to have the Royal Caribbean app downloaded with your account logged in and set up. I didn't have the app originally and it would have been even faster if I did. But when I first got on the ship, I felt a little bit overwhelmed. If you see my other videos, you know I cruise a lot. I have a simple plan when I get on ships. Get away from the crowd and find an elevator away from the main boarding area to get to the room. Problem was, this ship was enormous. I didn't know where my stateroom was, and if you go in the wrong direction, you might end up walking for a long time with your bags because the ship is hollow down the center. Crossing to the other side of this ship isn't always that easy. You can walk in the wrong direction for like 10 minutes, and then you gotta walk the other way for 10 minutes. You still don't know where you're going, you get the point. It's a massive ship and it's easy to get lost. When I first got on the ship, I didn't know what I was doing. I ended up waiting at the busiest elevators for 10 minutes, but by the time I got off the elevator, I realized we only went from deck 5 to 7, so we should have just taken the stairs. But once we were on the right deck, I actually started paying attention and read the signs carefully to find our stateroom number in just a few minutes. Finally, our stateroom. I went on this cruise with my mom and we booked a balcony room. As you can tell, I didn't really remember what or where I booked the room, and I was the one who booked it. I mean, come on, I'm on vacation. So once I finally found our room on this gigantic ship, I ran straight to the balcony to see where we were. And wow, it was huge with a ton of space, and it popped out a little bit over the side with a really good view. It looked like only one section of the ship had balconies popping out like this. The rest are all tucked in and flat, but we had an angle. So I'm going, this is really nice. I'm scratching my head. I don't remember booking this room. It looks like it would cost extra. Did we pay extra? I don't think I did. My mom didn't know either. Whatever, nice room. I didn't bother checking our reservation until after the cruise, and it turns out that it was a balcony guarantee room, which means they assign you a random balcony room at the last minute based on what's left. We saved over $100 each doing this. Not a huge amount, but it's nice to save a little bit with such an expensive cruise. The catch is you could end up with an obstructed view, but we got lucky. This balcony jutted out over the side, giving us a perfect view toward the bridge. We really hit the jackpot with this one and saved some money too. Turns out this also explains why I got lost. I didn't remember if the room was going to face inward toward the promenade in Central Park or outward towards the ocean, front or back. I was unorganized. I'm on a cruise. I got us on the ship. What more do you want from me? I don't even know what day it is. But heading inside our balcony guarantee room, there was plenty of space with the queen bed that we had separated into 2 double beds. The pillows, mattresses, and sheets were all pretty comfortable. There's also a big TV right in front of the bed, which actually had some decent channels like news and ESPN, and a few low-budget movies. Way better than what I saw a few weeks earlier on Norwegian Pearl. There's a couch and a desk along with a dresser, plenty of drawers, and a mini fridge. 2 large closets with plenty of storage, and by the door there's a big full-size mirror. The bathroom had a good amount of room, including in the shower, but the sink was really small and kinda annoying to use, and the shower only had 1 soap dispenser with all-in-one hair and body wash. Which gets to the one thing that jumped out at me immediately about this room. It had everything you needed, but absolutely nothing more. I've never seen an all-in-one hair and body wash dispenser on a cruise before. Every other ship has at least 2 dispensers, sometimes even a third for conditioner. A minor detail, but it's like, really? For the price of this cruise, it feels cheap. And the rest of the stateroom has nothing more than you need. It's very dull with noticeably no decoration. Aside from a few pictures on the wall, the light wood color is very boring. There's no decorative trim. The entire wall is just blank above the dresser. I mean, there's literally no decoration or heart or soul in this room aside from those pictures on the wall. It feels more like a college dorm room rather than a luxury resort. Even budget cruise line Margaritaville at sea had way better decorations in the stateroom than this. And I can understand why. This ship has like 6,000 passengers. It's hard to maintain all these rooms on such a big ship. More decorations, more things that break. But the room doesn't feel intimate. It feels more commercialized and generic than any ship I've seen. But a more important problem I had with this room was that the walls were very thin. Late at night, I could hear crackling from the people stomping around in the stateroom above ours. I mean, actual crackling and popping noises. It was so bad that I recorded it. Listen to this. So the stateroom had what you needed, but overall it feels like the absolute bare minimum. They're cheap staterooms in terms of quality, not in terms of price, but they're cheaply made. No decorations whatsoever and very thin walls. But in a way, this room's kind of funny. The beds are comfortable, there's a really nice big TV on the wall right in front of the bed, and a huge balcony, and absolutely nothing more. To me, Royal Caribbean is saying so much with this stateroom. They're saying, look, we over-delivered on the few important things, bed, TV, balcony, and everything else. It works, it could be better, but deal with it because there's so much to do on this gigantic ship, you don't have time to be sitting around in the room anyway. That's what this stateroom is saying to me, and maybe they're right, so let's go check out the ship. The Utopia of the Seas is the final ship of the Oasis-Class and was put into service in the summer of 2024. The first thing I noticed from the exterior is just how big it is. It's literally twice as wide as a normal cruise ship like Norwegian Pearl and almost 3 times the weight. In an industry first with the Oasis-Class, Utopia has the iconic open-air split superstructure, and you can see they created this space down the middle by pushing the 2 sides out over the base. Starting from the lifeboats and working upwards, you can see it all hangs over the side. The Oasis-Class was really the first to have this overhang structure, which creates more space on the ship and allows them to carry more guests. I really like the glass balconies down the entire side. I think it looks really sleek and modern. The rest of the exterior really speaks for itself. I mean, look at how much stuff there is on this ship. It's so exciting. When you see it in person, you just can't wait to get on board. So let's get on already. Look at these water slides. All three of them are awesome. I went like 50 times. There's like a billion pools up here, a splash zone for the kids. I mean, look at how fun that looks. All right, so we got 3 big pools up here, a bunch of bars and hot tubs. But my first time up on this Lido deck, there was one thing I had to see. I've been looking at Oasis-Class ships since they first came out in 2009. Many years ago, these ships have always been famous for their back, the open-air promenade. I mean, as a kid, I used to stare at Google Images, and nowadays I've seen thousands of reels of these ships on Instagram and TikTok. All this time, all these years, I've never actually been on the biggest cruise ships in the world. So finally, today, it's happening. I had to get back there to see it for myself in real life. I basically ran back there. Mini golf, it looks incredible. Big course, so many fun decorations. The flow rider, finally, for the first time in my life, I was old enough to do the surf simulator on the back of a cruise ship. Awesome. Basketball court, tennis court, pickleball, ping pong. Oh, and the zip line suspending over the boardwalk. Slide for the kids, another slide for the adults called the Abyss. Something I've seen for several years now. It's not a water slide, it's a dry slide. What's it like? I said, Mom, we're doing this right now. I have to try this. It looks awesome. She was scared. This is happening. Let's go. Boom, we're down on deck 6. This slide is so cool. It's actually really fast if you do it right. 10 floors, deck 16 all the way down to 6. I did it a million times. There was one time after we finished with the zip line, we wanted to go down to climb the rock wall. I said, Mom, let's take the slide again. She wasn't that into it. She said she'd meet me down there. Simple enough. What could go wrong? Well, I wait about 10 minutes in line for the slide. I land on deck 6 and my mom's nowhere to be seen. I wait and wait. I go sit down for a Diet Coke at Playmakers. 30 minutes later, my mom shows up and says, I got lost. I didn't know where the slide ended. I thought maybe 4 floors from deck 16 to 12. No, Mom, 10 floors. This slide goes all the way down to deck 6. I mean, it's crazy how enormous this ship is. You just get lost. So we're standing down on deck 6. I mean, guys, the back of an Oasis-Class ship was my background for like 5 years when I was a kid. Now I'm standing on it. Utopia. We got Playmakers, a really cool sports bar, carousel, candy shop, Johnny Rockets, rock climbing walls, aqua theater, open air. The views are incredible back here. Deck 6 down here on the boardwalk is one of the coolest spots on the ship. But we still aren't even done with the Lido deck yet because there's another really important thing up there. I don't know if I can get through this video. This is so hard because the ship is so big. Come on, let's do the solarium. Back up to deck 15 forward. What do we got? Forward-facing views. This is an adult-only area, and forward-facing views aren't always a given on cruise ships anymore. Sometimes you gotta pay extra for views this good. Overall, pretty good vibe in here. A lot of places to hang out, a waiting pool, and you just can't beat these views. They're amazing. My favorite part of the solarium is the hot tub that hangs over the side of the ship. Massive floor-to-ceiling windows, and the views are insane. It's awesome during the day and just as cool at night. And there's 2 TVs with live sports. That said, it's time to start complaining. The solarium gets packed during peak hours. I only used it when the ship was in port and no one was around. It's usually pretty crowded in here in the afternoon. I also don't like that it's fully indoor and enclosed. I get why they did it. It's climate controlled, which means that if there's bad weather, they can still use this space. And on a ship with so many people, you don't want to have one of the only adult-only venues on the ship closed or unusable. So that's why it's indoor, but I'm on a cruise. I'd rather have fresh air and sun. The style in here isn't quite as glitzy as what you'd see on Celebrity, which is Royal Caribbean's premium line. But overall, the solarium is a cool space. Heading back down to deck 5, there's the Royal Promenade, which feels like a little town running through the center of the ship. The classic Royal Caribbean setup, shops, bars, karaoke, cafes, the signature car in the middle. The new Pesky Parrot margarita bars here too. About a dozen venues along the promenade, all with great detail and lively vibes. There's a ton to do. Having said that, there are a few things I don't like about this promenade. See, Royal Caribbean designed this huge, bustling space at the heart of the ship, but somehow forgot the most important feature. A connection to the ocean? Take for example the nautical themed schooner bar, which looks really cool with really nice decorations, but there's no windows, no connection to the ocean, and no venues in this promenade have any windows. And without the ocean, this promenade is more like an enclosed shopping mall. It was the same with the spa. The gym was pretty big and did have a few windows, but I'll typically get the thermal suite pass when I go on cruises. Here it's down on the lower decks, no windows. I'm not gonna pay extra if there's no windows. I mean, I'm on a cruise, I wanna see the ocean. And it's kinda hard to see the ocean in general on this ship. Up on the Lido deck, it was just kinda difficult to see over the side. There's always a row of chairs blocking the railing, and typically people are sitting in these chairs later in the day. Even without the chairs, the glass railings are pretty tall, so so it's just harder to get a clear view compared to other ships. Now there's also down on the running track, but those views are mostly obstructed by the lifeboats. There's just not as many views of the ocean as I'd like on this ship. Back in the promenade, another issue that stood out to me right away was the lack of detail in some areas. It's like they have so much space that they can't decorate it all. There's entire slabs of space that don't have any decoration. If you look down the entire promenade, there's all these blank walls, big gray slabs, just empty space. And in the main dining room at dinner each night, we were seated in the same back corner, and you can see the walls were just empty. No artwork, no decorations, nothing. And the stateroom hallways had the same vibe, gray, bland, not that well lit. Once I noticed it, I saw it everywhere. You're walking through the ship and you'll just notice completely blank walls. No effort to add decorative trim or anything. See, some of my other videos for comparison, every other ship has had a lot more decoration than this. Even on the pool deck, I noticed these staterooms that are actually just white garages. I mean, they could throw some plants up there, some paint to make them less ugly and not just storage units. I really got the feeling that this ship is so big they can't maintain every square foot. When you add decorations, you gotta clean them, dust them, and it feels like they just didn't want to bother. Sometimes the ship feels more like a corporate office rather than a luxury cruise. Another thing I really didn't like was the Starbucks in the middle of the ship. I love cruise ships because they've always made me feel like I'm somewhere special. Royal Caribbean could have crafted a unique onboard coffee experience here, something that feels exclusive to the cruise, like imagine a nautical themed cafe that adds to the fantasy of this awesome vacation. There's an opportunity to create something that enhances the cruise vibe, but instead they just dropped in a Starbucks, the same thing you can get at home or at work. Starbucks on land is convenient, but on a cruise it just feels out of place. It's like seeing a Walmart inside a 5-star resort. It just doesn't fit. And there's one last thing I didn't like about this ship. The high-tech elevators are great. It's the kind where you select your floor and it assigns you an elevator, more efficient. The wait times for the elevators were still pretty long at times, so without this system it'd be even worse. But the elevators too feel off. You use the elevators a lot, and every time these elevator banks are just bland with no decoration. Like, am I at work? Is this the office? I've loved cruise ships my whole life. They make me feel like I'm somewhere special. It's the moments between the moments on this ship, when you're on your way to the amazing water slides, when you're on your way to your room, when you're on your way to dinner. It doesn't always feel special. Sometimes it just feels like a piece of metal, and I'm just thinking, where's the magic? Now, there actually is so much to do on this ship. You definitely can't do it all in 3 days, and as I spent more time on Utopia, I started to see the magic. At first, I was complaining about the lack of decoration, but then I'd stumble into another awesome venue I didn't even know existed, another bar, another cool spot, and that's exactly what happened with Central Park. I was complaining about how dull the promenade felt, but I kept forgetting there was an entire other area right above it with Central Park because this ship is enormous. It's open air, filled with greenery, little bars and restaurants, even wildlife sounds. Central Park is honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a cruise ship, and it actually connects with the promenade in a way that works. You see greenery through the rooftop windows, and there's the Rising Tide bar that moves between the two levels. Such a great place to grab a drink. So when I was talking about the moments between the moments feeling kinda dull, I realized you just gotta take a different route. There's magic all over this ship. You just gotta use it. Heading to dinner, walk through Central Park. Going to the slides, take the long way, soak it all in. This ship is massive, like a city. If you want to enjoy it, take the scenic route like you would walking through a city. It's just crazy how big it is. We were going 20 knots one night. That's 23 miles per hour. Pretty fast for an entire city, and you don't feel the ship rock or vibrate or move. It's just absolutely dominating the ocean. I just take a step back and I'm in awe of all the stuff happening here. That's the thing with the size of Utopia. There's so many things to stumble upon. Take the music hall. There was so much happening everywhere else that I never even had time to see a show here. But it looked awesome. Giovanni's is another beautifully designed venue with a porch looking right into the boardwalk. The casino, massive. There's the Royal Railway Utopia Station, a specialty dining spot we tried to book, but it was sold out. You stroll through the ship at night and it's beautiful. Central Park, the pool decks, it's so massive you can actually bar hop. You can have a quiet drink in Central Park and you just stumble into entertainment happening all over the ship. So many different venues and live bands. One night I wandered up to deck 15 by the Windjammer and I stumbled into the Mason Jar Bar. I had no idea this was here. I mean, look at the energy in here, like a cozy neighborhood bar, live music in the back. You keep wandering around and you'll find Boleros, a Latin-themed club, another live band, live music everywhere. Bell and Barley's, a British-themed pub, piano at the Schooner Bar, another band in the music hall. Up in the Solarium, there was a silent disco. This is actually really cool on Royal Caribbean celebrity ships. There's 3 different colors for 3 different types of music. The coolest party, one that that really stood out to me, I mean, I've never seen anything like it, was the sail-away parties on Utopia. First of all, it's massive because there's 2 pools and the DJ connecting the 2. The crew's walking around with a champagne gun spraying in everyone's mouths, including me. But they just really pulled off the vibe here. It's a huge party. The speakers are really good at the pool. They're really pulling off a day club pool party, pretty similar to what I see at day clubs in Miami. I mean, the sail-away parties on cruise ships can be pretty lame and boring sometimes, with the same music for people in their 70s, you know, celebrate good times, clap your hands, whatever. Not here. I mean, this was just an awesome party. The music was great. The DJ was a pro. He really knew what he was doing, I'll put it that way. But this was the best sail-away party I've ever seen on a cruise by far. I mean, even I wanted to start drinking. They're spraying champagne. It was so cool. Now, aside from the parties, one of the main parts of the world's biggest weekend is that it's the world's biggest. It's supposedly jam-packed with entertainment, biggest ship, best entertainment you can get on a cruise, supposedly. I don't always go to all the shows on a cruise, but with Royal Caribbean calling it the world's biggest weekend, I'm going to every show. So were they even any good? So there's 4 main shows packed into the 3-night cruise. So from the start, it's definitely like, wow, how are we even going to make it to all 4 of these shows? Aqua show, ice show, all-in main theater show, comedy show. Well, one night you just go to 2 shows a couple hours apart. Now the thing is, you do want to book all these shows in advance. Otherwise, you got to wait in line. And believe me, it's a major benefit to sign up for each show well before your cruise online. Because when you book in advance, you can enter the theater 30 minutes before everyone else, basically priority. Now of the 4 shows, I was only able to book 2 in advance online, and the advice from calling Royal Caribbean customer support was to book the remaining 2 right when you get on board. And so that's what we did. After we put our bags down in our room, before we went to eat, before we did anything, we went and booked those shows. So try to remember this simple thing. Book the shows online. It's free, no charge. Otherwise, book right when you get on the ship. Alright, let's go to the show. The first night was the Aqua show, but we were a little late, so we just stood in the back. Didn't matter though, we could still see just fine. And wow, this show was insane. Divers launching from 60 feet in the air, flipping, twisting. The pool gets deep, then shallow. You only see this kind of thing on Royal Caribbean's megaships and no other lines. So the Aqua show was in fact one of the best shows I've ever seen on a cruise ship. But this isn't just the world's biggest night, it's the world's biggest weekend. So let's keep going, because the next night was the production show in the main theater, the big show you'd expect on a cruise. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're awful. It really depends on the ship. This one, called All In, had so much potential. The theater itself is incredible. High-tech drones, a massive backdrop, and a cast with good talent. Not the best I've ever seen on a cruise, but good. The problem was the song choices and the way they put the whole show together. It felt like they just picked the safest, most generic playlist to appeal to everyone, and in the process ended up with no energy, no soul. My mom and I were literally falling asleep. It was disappointing. It felt like corporate produced filler. Honestly, Norwegian Pearl and MSC's main shows blow this one out of the water. I mean, world's biggest? No, absolutely not. So after the second night, I wasn't feeling great about the entertainment. The Aqua show was good the first night, but the main show was bad the second night, and with only one night left, I wasn't sure what to expect. But the next night was the ice show in Studio B, because Royal Caribbean ships have ice rinks. Now this show was awesome. It did blow me away. The ice was amazing with how they project the images and animations onto it. Fog machines, the ice skaters are all, of course, very talented, and you're just not going to see this on other lines. It was really amazing and unique. I kept taking my phone out at this show because every minute the rink changed and it looked incredible. And I really liked how they set up the comedy show. It was in the massive main theater, and instead of just one guy doing a set like most cruises, they had an opener and a main act, which made it feel like a real comedy event. After seeing how vanilla and corporate produced the main show was, I was expecting the comedy show to be a politically correct corporate fluff disaster, but they weren't. They were actually really funny. They weren't afraid to offend people, and I enjoyed it. So the entertainment was pretty good for the world's biggest weekend, but let's talk about the food. This was my first Royal Caribbean cruise since 2015. It's been a while, but I saw so much on YouTube and articles over the years about how their food has gone downhill. I wasn't sure what to expect. When we first got on the ship, we headed up to the Windjammer for lunch, but since we stopped to book all the shows first, we got there too late and it was already closed. But they pointed us to the cantina, which was still open and serving Mexican food. I grabbed a pre-made quesadilla and burrito, added queso and salsa. It was fine, a little bland, nothing close to Chipotle. After exploring the ship and the sail-away party, we headed to the Windjammer for a few snacks. My first time in the Windjammer. What's it like on these world-famous mega ships? And I was impressed. Maybe I'm easily impressed, but the whole setup looked fresh and abundant. Everything was so well presented that you just wanted to try it all. I really liked the donut station and loaded up a few with chocolate sauce. There's a bakery on the ship, so all these donuts are freshly made on board. I mean, look at these donuts. Aren't they awesome? A few hours later, we were at dinner dinner for the first time and started with appetizers. My mom had the shrimp cocktail and I had the escargot. The escargot was great. I get this on celebrity ships all the time too, which is also owned by Royal Caribbean, so it's similar. For the main course, I had the prime rib and my mom had some sort of vegetable lasagna. We finished with chocolate cake for dessert. A good first night at dinner. The next morning, I headed up to the Windjammer and wow, I was really impressed with the spread. There's just so much to choose from. I mean, just 2 weeks before this cruise, I was on Norwegian Pearl and Utopia is blowing it out of the water when it comes to food. Fresh pastries, avocado toast, bagels with salmon. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And there's more. Eggs Benedict ready to go, yogurt parfaits. My favorite is the muesli. It's also on celebrity ships and I love that stuff for breakfast. Muffins, donuts, hash browns, bacon, the list goes on. The coffee was fine, nothing like the disaster I had on Norwegian Pearl if you've seen that video. Utopia has a Starbucks too, but it's nice that they don't force you to go there. There's decent quality coffee offered in the Windjammer. So breakfast was good, but it was lunch on the second day where both my mom and I realized, yeah, this is really good food. I walk up and see the chicken and waffles, sweet and sour chicken, all kinds of meats and pastries, different types of fish, plenty of gluten-free options, mashed potatoes. Look at all these strip steaks you can just take. It was at this point where my mom said, wow, I can't believe anyone would complain about the food on this ship. And I agree, there's so many fresh, good quality options. I had the strip steak with mashed potatoes and I tried a burger, which was okay, but not great because they want you to buy a burger at Johnny Rockets in the boardwalk. But for lunch, they also have random places like this food truck with sandwiches to go. One of the changes I've been seeing recently was with the hand wash attendants where you enter the buffet on Royal Caribbean. These guys are always hilarious. They're singing songs like Barbie Girl, but they changed the lyrics like In a Washy World. Back in 2020, it wasn't really clear if cruise lines would be able to stay in business. But now today, one of the only changes is just that they sing and dance to get you to wash your hands at the buffet. Because capitalism rocks. Alright, the second night at dinner, I started with this Asian taco with pork, a Caesar salad, and a New York strip steak, cooked just the way I like it, and this blueberry cobbler for dessert. Then on day 3, we were at Royal Caribbean's private island Coco Cay. I had my go-to breakfast with some yogurt and muesli along with some donuts and eggs Benedict. Lunch on Coco Cay had some island-style food along with Cuban sandwiches, burgers, hot dogs, tacos. I tried the jerk chicken and this Cuban roll. Both were pretty good. After getting back on the ship and watching us sail away from Coco Cay, we headed for our final dinner on board. That's why I decided to get 2 appetizers, a crab cake and Greek platter, then a lamb chop for the main. My mom had this crusted salmon and these desserts were just okay. Overall, I found the food in the main dining room was on par with other lines, but the Windjammer buffet often surprised me and blew me away with so many options and way higher quality than I expected. So the food was good, but let's talk about the overall experience and itinerary on this 3-day cruise, the world's biggest weekend, supposedly. After getting on the ship on Friday, we headed south for a port day in Nassau on Saturday. The nice thing was we docked around 9 a.m., not too early, so it was easy to watch. We didn't have anything planned when we got off the ship, but Nassau is always great because there's so many ships in port. We just decided to walk around and take it all in. Outside the cruise terminal, there's some shops, but once you get past that and hit the main street, that's when it sinks in. You're in a different country. Since we had no real destination in mind, we kept wandering, just exploring until we stumbled upon a Margaritaville resort. I'm a huge Jimmy Buffett fan, so I had to check it out. At first, we just walked around the outside, taking in the beach and everything happening around it. But then we wandered inside, found some shops, and made our way to the pool, which had some incredible views. One of our favorite songs right here. Even though we had no plans, this Margaritaville ended up being a fun surprise. Sometimes the best moments are the ones you don't plan for. Soon we made our way back to the ship and watched another beautiful sail away from Nassau as we headed north. Day 3 was Sunday at Coco Cay, Royal Caribbean's private island. But we weren't going to get off the ship immediately because there was so much on the ship that I hadn't tried yet or wanted to try again. By Sunday morning, it was already the last day. Tomorrow we get off. So first I went down all the slides multiple times for about an hour because there was no line. After a while, the slide started to hurt my back. If you remember, pack a swim shirt. Then I jumped in the pool, nobody was in it, and headed to the hot tub hanging over the side of the ship all to myself. You gotta find the low crowd times. I found them. There was one thing I was not leaving this ship without trying. That's the flow rider. The last time I was on a Royal Caribbean ship with a flow rider, I was too young to give it a shot. So I had to make it happen this time. I headed up, waited about 45 minutes, and got my turn. I managed to stand up and surf for a few minutes, and it doesn't hurt when you fall. It was an awesome experience and crazy that this is something you can do on the back of a cruise ship. Eventually, Eventually, we got off the ship to explore the private island. This was my first time at Coco Cay. I've been to MSC's private island Ocean Cay and Norwegian's private island Great Stirrup Cay. In my last video, I talked about how much worse Norwegian's private island was compared to MSC. So let's see how Royal Caribbean's private island compares. All kinds of stuff to do, more water slides that you gotta pay extra for, but it was nice that the water slides on the ship were open in port. I thought for sure they'd nickel and dime us on that, but they didn't. All kinds of cool stuff here, pirate ship for the kids, restaurants. We continued down the path and stumbled upon this entire play area for kids, their own water park. And this is free, included in the cruise. It's really nice that they have this for families. We kept walking and passed by two massive pools with swim-up bars. This is the first of the cruise ship private islands that I've seen with pools, and they're big pools. They look like a good time. And all this open grass behind it. We headed towards the beach and passed by private cabanas, lounge chairs, and plenty of activities, a giant pool table, hot air balloon ride. But what really stood out to me was the greenery. This island has surprisingly lush, thick vegetation, giving it a quiet, tropical feel. You don't see this kind of plant life on most other cruise line islands. Coco Cay has plenty of bars, basketball and volleyball courts, swim-up bars, plenty of places to party if that's your vibe. But it's well balanced with quiet spaces too. By this point, we had walked pretty far, so we hopped on the tram back toward the ship, stopping at Chill Beach, a nice laid-back spot. From there, you can see Norwegian's private island in the distance, a minor detail, but one thing I like about MSC's Ocean Cay is that it's secluded. You don't see any other islands all around it, and no other ships. It's one ship, one island. Here today at Coco Cay, there's two ships, which makes it a little bit more crowded. Coco Cay itself is beautiful. Plenty of shops, activities, even a zip line. But what really stood out to me was the tropical vegetation, way more greenery than the other private islands and clearly intentional. Overall, it's definitely better than Norwegian's Great Stirrup Cay, but compared to MSC's Ocean Cay, I still like that MSC has one ship in port at a time and that it's more secluded, but Coco Cay does have more to do and more greenery. I'm not sure which is better, it depends on the day. We headed back to the ship and had a drink at the Rising Tide bar just to try it out. It was cool to do once, but I had no real desire to do it again. You sit on it for 45 minutes and you can't see the ocean, but it's a good place to grab a drink. Then up to the zip line, I did it like 10 times. It's a lot of fun. My neck was really sore the next day because I gave myself whiplash. But wasn't done yet. I took the slide down to the boardwalk to climb the rock wall as we sailed away from Coco Cay. The next morning, we were back in Port Canaveral. I expected getting off a ship this massive to be a nightmare, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. There were a lot more people than on other ships. It still took about 45 minutes, and the crowds outside the terminal were packed. We skipped the elevator chaos and hauled our bags up 4 flights of stairs in the parking garage, but once we got to the car, we were on our way home. When I got home, it turns out I got very sick, a nasty cough and flu, and I was in bed for an entire week. I've never gotten sick on a cruise before. It can happen on any ship, but this was the biggest and most crowded ship in the world, so maybe that has something to do with it, who knows. So let's talk about what we paid for the world's biggest weekend. The guarantee balcony stateroom was $738 a person, and we saved $112 each by doing the guarantee rather than choosing an exact room. But with fees and everything, it was $1,713 total. So it was not cheap at all for 3 days. There's other room choices, but you're probably not getting on this ship for under $1,000. Here's an example of what prices typically look like 3 months from now. 4 options to start with. All these stateroom categories have quite a few options within them: interior, ocean view, balcony, and Royal Suite class, which starts from $3,000 per person all the way up to over $5,000 per person for a 3-day cruise. The highest tier of the Royal Suite class gives you access to the private restaurant called the Coastal Kitchen, all kinds of discounts and included specialty dining, free drinks and Wi-Fi, a personal concierge, and access to the suite sun deck. Now let's break all this down and give it a vibe score. The best possible vibe score is 100. There's 5 categories, each out of 10 for 50 total points. Then we double it to get our anchor points for a base score. But before our final score, we add bonus points or subtract penalty points. So let's figure out the vibe score for the world's biggest weekend on Utopia of the Seas. Starting with the stateroom. For a guaranteed balcony stateroom, we got really lucky with where we were placed, and it had a huge balcony and a nice TV. But that was about it. The rest of the room was pretty disappointing with some cut corners and kind of a depressing look to it. Add on the noise from above at night because of the cheap flooring. It's not like this was a low-cost room for a 3-day cruise. This balcony stateroom is a 5 out of 10. The ship itself was massive, absolutely huge, with so much to do. But because of its size, some areas felt bare, missing that extra touch of decoration which took away some of the magic. That said, I loved how much there was to experience. My favorite parts were Central Park, the water slides, flow rider, zipline, and the hot tub that hangs over the side. If I'm being honest though, while it's the biggest ship in the world, it's definitely not my favorite. I prefer the modern, luxury, almost yacht-like vibe of Celebrity and MSC. Utopia is really lacking a maritime vibe with limited views of the ocean in public spaces and almost no nautical decor. A lot of design choices seem like they want you to forget you're on a boat, and I don't like that. Utopia felt a little too big for my taste, not just the crowds, but because getting around was a bit of a hassle with the elevators, the ship's layout, and its sheer size. And while it has tons of venues, I found that a lot of them weren't things I'd actually use or want to try more than once. Utopia of the Seas is a 7 out of 10. The food was much better than I expected, and we didn't pay for anything extra on board. While the dinner was about the same as on other lines, the Windjammer Buffet was really good for breakfast and lunch with so many options, so much choice, so much opulence. You're on the biggest cruise ship in the world, and there's so much good food. Like my mom said, I don't know how anyone could complain about the food on this ship. It was an 8 out of 10. The overall experience was pretty good too. Out of the 4 shows, only 1 missed the mark, but the other 2 were incredible. Definitely 2 of the best I've ever seen on a cruise and some of the best shows I've seen in my life. Ed on the water slides, hot tub over the sides, flow rider, zip line, rock climbing, hanging out in Central Park, flying down the abyss slides. And that's just the beginning. The sail away parties were the best I've ever seen, and there were still at least 20 things I didn't get a chance to try on Utopia. Restaurants, bars, nightlife, and that's not even counting the endless things to try at the ports we visited. There's so much to do. It's impossible to fit it all into just 3 days, so it's fair to call it the world's biggest weekend. The experience is an 8 out of 10. Finally, there's value. And there's plenty of value in this cruise, but it's not like it was cheap. The cabin prices are among the most expensive for a weekend cruise. It's the biggest ship with more to do than on others, but to me, it's not necessarily a better weekend cruise experience than smaller, older ships I've tried like MSC Divina, Norwegian Pearl, Celebrity Silhouette. Utopia is just different, but plenty of things are worse when compared to those older, smaller ships, and it was 3 times the price. This is a very expensive option. Was it worth the money? Yes and no, it depends on what you're looking for. Value is a 6 out of 10. So that gives us 34 out of 50. We double it for 68 total anchor points. But wait, there's bonus and penalty. We called customer service to separate the beds and they came immediately. +1. Water slide, zip line, flow rider, so much outdoor stuff to do that's actually really cool. +1. Amazing aqua show and ice show. +1. Constantly being in awe about how big this ship was and how much there was to do. +1. That means our final score, the vibe score for a weekend cruise on the world's biggest weekend, Utopia of the Seas, is a 72 out of 100. Pretty good score. Overall, the world's biggest weekend was a ton of fun with a ton to do, but it certainly comes at a cost. Does it live up to the hype? Pretty much, yeah, I think so. There was more entertainment, more going on, more options than what you'd find on a typical weekend cruise. But even so, for me, it's not the best weekend cruise for my taste, but I definitely understand the appeal. Utopia of the Seas is an awesome ship. It has a ton to offer. She's enormous, fast, extremely high-tech, and one of the most spectacular things mankind has ever built. If you can get on this ship, my advice, do it and don't look back. Thank you so much for watching. Please show your support by liking and subscribing because it really helps out. Well, another day at sea has come and gone away. This is Vessel Vibes. Till next time, keep cruising.